Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Another Springbok team announcement, another team named. Very important game against Tonga, obviously after the loss against Ireland. This is a very important game for the Boks, not only just to get the win, but to also score as many points as possible. It could be, and I mean, now we obviously speculating, but it could be that there might be an upset or there might be a surprise, and Scotland beats Ireland. It's possible. And then the teams will go down to points difference and who played who and who beat who. So I think just generally, not just that, just once you've had a loss in a test match, I think most coaches want to get back on the horse pretty quickly and put in a dominant performance. I think this is what the squad has sort of been chosen for. So yeah, first the headline. The headline's quite obvious. Andre Pollard back at 10. So I know I had a video yesterday, which caused quite some interesting comments there about Andre Pollard. That the debate's going on between him and Manie the Bok. To me, I think Andre Pollard's an exceptional international class 10. I think his goal kicking is something that still can be put work into it, but he does have the big match temperament, and I think the sooner that the Boks have two 10s that are firing, the better, and have different options in terms of their goal kicking, the better as well. So I endorse that. Not that it really matters if I endorse it, but I endorse that decision to choose him at 10. And often what happens is coaches choose a player coming back from injury to start, mainly because if they come off the bench and there is an injury, then it leaves them with limited options to replace them, especially if they get sort of injured late in a game, or the rest of the bench has already gone on, which the Boks tend to do rather earlier than most teams. So I think it makes sense for him to start. Manie the Bok is on the bench. I don't think there's too much you can read into it. I think very much the rest of the team is very much a second string team. It's a team chosen to sort of give the rest of the squad their final chance of staking a claim in the starting lineup before the playoffs begin. And I think there's a number of players there who can stake that claim. So I mean, after the Ireland loss, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of thoughts going around. And I think the Boks want to get back on the horse as quickly as possible on Sunday. And get that victory. But yeah, Andre is back in the side, so his performance is going to be scrutinized. It's going to be watched by everybody, and especially his goal kicking. And there's a lot of pressure on him. Look, he's a guy who's played the World Cup final. He has that BMT, so he'll know the pressure. So I don't think that's an issue. And I think Manie the Bok is also there, and maybe it'll take some of the pressure off Manie coming on in the second half. When he comes on, maybe that's what he needs in terms of I don't know, just relieving some of that pressure on his goal kicking. I still think Manie's done exceptionally well. I laid out all my thoughts about that yesterday in that video, so if you haven't watched that, please go and watch that. But yeah, that's the headline. Andre Pollard is back at 10, and that's a huge one for the Boks. I think there's a lot of people that'll be very happy about that, and he certainly adds a different dimension to the attack, and he is somebody who has played at the highest level, has won a World Cup, but he is somebody who's played 30 minutes rugby in the last 3 months, hasn't played a test rugby in over a year. So the Tongan challenge is going to be an interesting one for him. Not that I don't think he can make it or anything. I just think they're a physical team, and it'll be a good challenge for him to come back into test rugby. So looking forward to that one. So that's the main headline. Then we look at the next thing that sort of caught my eye as well, was Deon Fourie at hooker, which I thought was always going to happen because they don't have a second hooker. And you want to give Bongi a rest as well. So Deon gets the nod there, and then Marco van Staden as the reserve hooker. So that's quite an interesting choice as well. I mean, we know it's happening. The Boks have been quite open about this, but it's just interesting to see it in a team sheet for the first time in a while. So the Boks have Marco as their reserve hooker. I take it Trevor Nyakane is going to be the swinger, the guy who, if there are two hookers injured, that could probably come in that hooker as well. He has been that role in the past, but I think it's going to be an interesting test for Marco. And look, it gives them also another different aspect on the field. Marco brings a lot of his work rate is high, and obviously plays to the ball, so that's going to be quite interesting. But it's a different role for him, so it's going to be a different challenge for him. So yeah, that's going to be a very interesting role to see how Marco does there. I think the rest of the team, pretty much what we expected. It is very much the team, the backline at least, that played against Romania. You have Willie Leroux, who's now, in my mind, you can quite see it quite clearly, that Damien Willems has taken over as the number 115 in the side. Villy's still got a lot to offer in the team, and he's still got a huge role to play. So it's good to keep him there. It's his 90th Test match as well. So that'll be quite interesting to see. So how he responds to that challenge as well. I'm sure he'd want his jersey back as well. But yeah, Villy's back at 15. 14 and 11, pretty much like Romania. Makazole Mapimpi, who scored a hat-trick against Romania, and Grant Williams, who played the scrum half, playing on the wing. They've chosen him there again. Has an incredible amount of speed, and there's not too much you need to say about him. He can fulfill that role quite easily. The two centres, Andre Estes and Kainan Moody, is continuing a sort of a combination, and you sort of wonder if this is not the combination going for the future that the Boks are trying to develop. They're both exceptional players. Feel a bit sorry for Andre Estes, and I think he's put in some exceptional performances. Kainan Moody's definitely put his hand up to be in the starting lineup quite a bit. So both of them sort of deserve a shot, and I think the only good can come from playing them together, and they seem to be developing slowly into a very nice combination that might be used in the future as well. So that's going to be interesting to watch as well. Kobus Reinach at scrum half, he's off his hat-trick against Romania. Would have been hard to drop him anyway, but I think he certainly put the yards in, and he knows Andre Pollard as well. They played a bit together at Montpellier, so they know each other. So there is a combination there as well. Then we look at the forwards, and the interesting combination there is obviously Jasper Wiese is kept. He's one of three players in that forward pack that started against Ireland. In fact, three players in the starting 15 that started against Ireland that are still there. Eben Etzebeth and Sia Kolisi being the other two. But Jasper's partnered with Sia in the back row, and Wayne Vermeulen, who I think the Boks actually missed quite a bit against Ireland. I thought his work rate over the ball, his sort of the way he hits rucks and the way he sort of disrupts the opposition, I would have had him there as well, but he gets his chance now at 7 lock, which is an interesting one. That's obviously to give Peter Steph du Toit, who's such a workhorse, also a rest. Sia's playing his 50th test as captain, so what a milestone for him. So it's interesting that they're playing him, because I would have thought they might want him, but maybe they want to get that out of the way, before the quarterfinals, that there's not these milestones hanging over their heads when they play these big games as well. So that's the loose trio. Eben Etzebeth joined by his Tygerberg High School ex-alumni, Marvin Ori. Marvin hasn't played in the tournament yet, so it's quite good to see him getting a start as well. And then the front row quite picks itself. Vincent Koch is over his knee injury. It's nice to see he got injured, obviously warming up in the game against Romania, so he's now over that and he gets his start now. Dion Fourie at hooker, which is going to be very widely scrutinized as well. And then obviously Oxton Che, who fills that role at loosehead quite well, and is quite a strong loosehead as well to that. So nothing wrong with that pack. That pack should get dominance as well, and I think the Boks are looking for that. And then obviously to unleash that backline. That's a team that's starting to play those combinations, starting to play together a lot more, and I think that's also with an eye on the future. But they've picked a very strong bench, which is interesting, because obviously we've spoken now about Marco van Staden, and Marco's change to hooker is a very interesting one as well, that the Boks would have scrutinized as well. But they're quite happy with choosing him as the third hooker. I think there's been a lot of debate. There's been some other videos I've done about that, and there's been debate all around the internet about whether he is a hooker or a flank. But certainly that's also going to be one that's widely watched. Then two players who are Steven Kitshoff, who just doesn't seem to get a break. You feel for him a bit, but he's on the bench, and Trevor Nekani, very experienced front rows to come on with Marco when he does come on to scrum, so we don't expect that any trouble there. The Boks haven't gone with the bomb squad this time. They've gone with a traditional 5-3 split, which means that Franco Mostert, Sous, will be the lock flank cover, and Kwagga Smith, with his high work rate, will be the other guy and the other forward on the bench. The backs sort of choose themselves. It's Jesse Krill covering the outside channels. You have Marnie covering the fly-half and fullback channel, and then you have Jaden Hendricks as the scrum half. I think pretty strong bench that. Tonga obviously lost Fafita for head clash. They're a team that has really underperformed at this World Cup. We expected a lot more. The Boks will be a bit wary of them, especially given what they did to the Springbok team in 2007. I remember being in Lens in France, where they played the Boks and they held them. They almost won the game in the end. One of Jake White's nightmares there. I remember Bob Skinstad captaining that team in Lens, and the Boks having quite a comfortable lead, and obviously Tonga coming back at them quite strongly. And there was a moment right at the end of that game, for those who remember, where the ball was kicked through, and if it bounced in, they would have scored, and if it bounced out and sort of saved the Boks blushes. So, they can be a difficult team. They haven't shown that this year yet. Scotland beat them quite comprehensively. They did have moments against Scotland, but then overall Scotland were way too strong. Ireland put 50 on them, so I think the Boks are going to need to put a power performance. Obviously, points difference becomes a factor as well, and so I think it's a strong team. It's what we more or less expected. Obviously, the Andre Pollard thing will dominate everything, but just to me, the Marco van Staden at reserve hooker, that's going to be an interesting point. And then really just who puts up their hands for a role in the starting lineup, because I think the starting lineup for the quarterfinals is almost settled, but can any player force their way in? I think Andre Esterhuizen can make a dent. Andre Pollard obviously is the one guy who's going to be very watched for that role as well. But if you look in the pack, Dwayne Vermeulen has got a chance to make a dent as well. And any of the other guys in sort of the front row, I'm trying to think who else there might be. I think Makazole Mapempe might have a go. But I think other than that, the starting lineup for the quarterfinal, if the Boks get there, I can't look too far ahead. They should get there. But the starting lineup for the quarterfinal is almost set. So the challenge is for these players to go out, do the job, get the win with hopefully a bonus point, rack up some points, and put in a good performance. And then obviously going out and stake a claim for that starting lineup, because I think the Bok management are open enough to know that what they'll need against France, and if somebody puts in a huge performance against Tonga, they could find themselves in that starting lineup for that quarterfinal. Of course, we don't know it's France. We suspect it's France at the moment, but interesting team named, and I must admit, pretty much what I expected. I didn't expect too much else than that, and we always knew Andre Pollard was going to play, so I don't think there's any major surprises in this team, but this doesn't seem to be with the Bok team lately anyway. You sort of know what they're going to pick as well. I think there is, though, a challenge to obviously rectify what went wrong against Ireland and put the record straight and make sure of that quarterfinal place now. So that'll be the big objectives, and obviously those players I mentioned that will be scrutinized. That's my take on it. Let me know what you think. If you feel anybody missed out or should have played, anybody who should stake a claim for the starting lineup, please tell me below in the comments. Otherwise, Liam Delcom and Liam Delcom's the Sunday Times rugby writer. He's in Marseille at the moment, and him and I will be chatting on our podcast, To the Last Drop, which will be out, also talking about the game and about the Ireland game. So keep an eye out for that on this channel as well. But if you haven't smashed that subscribe button, please do. And thanks for watching. And another nighttime team announcement, late night team announcement. So getting quite used to these at the moment. But thanks for watching. Cheers.